Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to Paranoid Stories. Today, I am back with 4 true long-haul trucker horror stories. In this episode, we will venture deep into the absolute isolation of America's forgotten roads, from the dust-choked Midwest plains and the suffocating darkness of mountain tunnels, to the waterlogged stillness of the deepest bayous. Each story is a genuine nightmare pulled from the testimonies of real people who found themselves trapped in the iron and glass cage of their truck, miles from the nearest town. To protect the privacy of those involved, names and specific details have been carefully altered while preserving the terrifying authenticity of each encounter. If you're new to Paranoid Stories, consider subscribing for nightly true horror content that will keep you looking over your shoulder. Tap the notification bell so you never miss an episode. Now, buckle in, check your mirrors, and let us begin our journey into the heart of highway terror. I gripped the steering wheel tighter as the sky turned the color of old rust. I had been driving Interstate 70 for hours, cutting through the flat nothing of Kansas, chasing a job lead in Wichita that probably wasn't worth the gas. The radio had been spitting static for the last 20 miles, some radio host voice cutting in and out before giving up entirely. My truck's windshield wipers were slapping uselessly against the first grains of dust whipping across the glass. It hit like a wall. 1 minute the horizon was hazy with afternoon heat. The next, a brown shroud swallowed everything. The dust storm rolled in like something from an old history book, choking the air with grit that rattled against the truck's cab like shotgun pellets. Visibility dropped to 0 in seconds. I couldn't see the hood of my Ford, let alone the road. My throat tightened, dry from the recycled air, and I coughed into my sleeve. I had no choice but to pull over. The service road exit blurred past, but I jerked the wheel anyway, tires crunching onto gravel I couldn't even see. The truck shuddered to a stop, engine humming low. Through the smeared windshield, I made out the shape of something ahead. A squat building, its sign half buried in the murk. An old truck stop, abandoned and worn, with rusted pumps and dark windows. Better than stalling out blind on the highway. I killed the engine and sat there for a moment, the sudden quiet amplifying the howl outside. Dust was already seeping in, fine particles dancing in the weak sunlight. My eyes burned, and I rubbed them hard, feeling the grit under my eyelids. Grabbing my jacket, I stepped out, pulling the collar up over my mouth. The wind shoved me like a fist, sandblasting my jeans, filling my boots. I staggered toward the building, one hand out for balance, the other shielding my face. The door was a heavy glass slab, propped open by the storm or time. I pushed inside, slamming it shut behind me. The air was thick, a dry haze that coated my tongue with each breath. Counters sagged under years of neglect, shelves bare except for broken glass jars and faded chip bags. The fluorescent lights were long dead, but faint daylight filtered through the grimy windows, turning everything the color of dried blood. I walked around the room, boots scuffing on the linoleum, kicking up clouds of dust that hung like smoke. The storm's roar softened inside, but it pressed against the walls, making the floor vibrate. My heart beat steady, not panicked, just annoyed at being stuck. I needed shelter until the storm passed. I tried the back door first, a metal slab with a rusted knob. Locked tight. Then the side exit, same story. Finally, the front door again, but from inside. The glass was covered in a thick layer of dust, undisturbed except for some markings. I froze, hand on the push bar. Etched into the dust were strange symbols, rough, jagged lines like someone had dragged a nail across in a hurry. Not words exactly, more like cave drawings, a circle with spokes, a hunched figure with stretched out arms, and what looked like eyes stacked in a triangle. A chill ran down my spine. The symbols weren't just on one window, they circled the entire front, seeming both random and deliberate. My pulse quickened. I tried to tell myself it was just my imagination, that storms play tricks on your mind. I turned away, heading to the counter to wait it out. The dust kept filtering in through cracks in the walls, piling on the windowsills like fine powder. I wiped my face, tasting salt and earth. Time seemed to drag, 20 minutes, 30. My watch had stopped, probably from the battery dying. Suddenly, the wind stopped. The silence crashed in, complete and unnatural. No rustling, no distant sounds, nothing. I eased the door open an inch. Outside, the air hung still, dust settling like fallout over the parking lot. The sky was clear with bruised purple edges, but everything felt muffled. As I stepped out, the truck stop's lights began to flicker on, first outside, then inside. One by one, they warmed up, casting a weak yellow glow over the decaying building. I turned back to the door, and the symbols seemed sharper now, almost pulsing in the light. I slid into my truck, started the engine. But something felt wrong. In the rearview mirror, I saw the dust on the window moving, reshaping itself into new, reaching patterns. My hands went slick on the steering wheel. I hit the gas, tires spinning gravel as I peeled out. Miles later, the radio crackled back to life, but the words blurred in my head, drowned by the memory of those symbols. I pulled into a motel, hands shaking as I signed the register. Sleep didn't come easily. Every pipe creak sounded like settling dust. By morning, I was on the road again, eyes scanning the sky. Those patterns stuck with me, etched deeper than glass. I started seeing them everywhere, in wall cracks, in cornfield shadows. Whatever created those marks wasn't finished, and now it had my scent. The truck's engine rumbled to a stop, its low growl too loud in the empty night. I killed the ignition and rubbed my eyes. Victor Morales, 15-year long-haul driver, and this was my first midnight cargo inspection on a route like this. Dispatch called an hour earlier about some routine check on an interstate shipment. No big deal, but the loading dock was in the middle of nowhere, a forgotten industrial wasteland off the highway. Chain-link fence topped with razor wire, sodium lights buzzing overhead like angry insects. Diesel and damp concrete filled the air, with only the distant highway hum breaking the silence. I climbed out of the cab, boots crunching gravel, and locked the door out of habit. The trailer was sealed tight, manifest clipped to my clipboard. 50 custom caskets for eternal rest, all empty, headed to their upstate warehouse. High-end stuff, polished mahogany and oak, silk-lined interiors that probably cost more than my monthly rent. I'd loaded them that morning, stacking them neatly, secured with straps. No shifting, no noise, just wood and quiet. The inspector was late. I paced the dock, checking my watch under the harsh light. 12:15. No phone signal out here, and an uneasy feeling crept up my spine. Then I heard it, a faint tap, like something softly touching the trailer's metal side. Cargo settling, I thought. These wooden boxes were heavy, and trailers get bumpy. I walked closer, pressed my ear against the cool aluminum. Tap, tap, tap. Faint, irregular. Nothing to worry about. But the sound didn't stop. Minutes passed and it grew sharper, pulling me back. I lit a cigarette, leaning against the trailer. The smoke curled up, and that's when the rhythm started. 3 distinct knocks, slow, deliberate. Knock, knock, knock. Pause. Then again. Not random anymore. like someone testing a door from the inside, but measured, almost polite. And it moved, starting low near the rear wheels, then shifting forward, echoing from what felt like the second row of caskets. I froze, cigarette burning my fingers. The ash fell, but I didn't move. Hands shaking, I pulled out the manifest again, shining my phone's light on it. Empty containers, signed by the foreman. No passengers, no extras. I'd seen the factory floor, rows of gleaming boxes, lids open. But this was different. The knocking repeated, 3 by 3, traveling toward the front of the trailer, like something was walking from one box to the next. I had to check. The inspector hadn't arrived, and waiting felt worse than knowing. I grabbed bolt cutters from under the seat and cut the lock on the rear doors. The chain fell loudly to the ground. Heart pounding, I opened the doors slightly. Darkness inside, smelling of fresh wood. I switched on my phone's flashlight, sweeping it across the stacks. The caskets looked untouched, polished surfaces catching the light, lids closed, empty according to the manifest. But the knocking was closer now, 3 sharp raps from the nearest walnut casket with brass fittings. My light trembled on the wood, no marks. I reached out, fingers hovering, feeling the chill radiating from it. The trailer's air felt thick, stagnant. "Anyone in there?" My voice cracked. Stupid question. No answer, just the persistent knock, knock, knock. It paused, then moved. Soft vibrations under my hand as the sound shifted to the next casket. I yanked the lid up. Empty. Silk lining, perfect. But the knocking continued, jumping to another box with 3 deliberate beats. Sweat beaded on my forehead. I slammed the lid shut and backed out, closing the doors. I wedged a pallet against the handles, weak, but it would hold. Pacing, I lit another cigarette with unsteady hands. What was happening? Rats? No. Too rhythmic. Road echoes. We'd been stopped too long. The knocking spread across the trailer, 3 from the rear, 3 from the middle, 3 from the front. A synchronized chorus. I pressed against the cab door, staring at the trailer. The wood gleamed innocently, but each knock pulled at my gut. Dispatch finally crackled on the radio. Inspector delayed. "Forget it," I muttered. I climbed into the cab, locked the doors, and drove. The trailer swayed, the knocking fading into the road's hum. Or so I thought. On the highway, it returned. Softer, but there, 3 knocks vibrating through the floor, moving from back to front like settling in for the ride. I gripped the wheel, cranked the radio to drown it out. By dawn, I'd convinced myself it was road fatigue. A week later, Eternal Rest's stock crashed. Complaints about caskets with imperfections, whispers of something trapped during construction. Drivers who'd hauled those routes quit. I still drive, but not those loads. Manifests get double-checked now. And at night in the quiet apartment, I sometimes hear it. 3 soft knocks, waiting, moving closer. I've been hauling freight down Louisiana's back roads for 20 years, and I know the bayou like the veins in my own arm. It's a place that doesn't forgive mistakes, where the water hides things that would make a person question their sanity. That night, though, it caught me off guard. I was east of Houma, pushing my truck through a drizzle that had been hitting the windshield for miles. The radio was crackling with static, a Cajun station fading in and out with Zydeco beats that did nothing to break the monotony. Then it hit. Not a storm, but a downpour, like the sky had opened up and dumped the entire Gulf right on top of me. Visibility dropped to 0. Windshield wipers slapped uselessly against the rain, blurring the road ahead into a sheet of gray. My hands gripped the wheel so tight my knuckles ached. I couldn't keep driving. Too dangerous with the pipe load in the trailer. Up ahead, a narrow gravel shoulder rose slightly along the embankment. I eased the 18-wheeler onto it, tires crunching over shells and mud. I killed the headlights to save the battery and sat listening to the rain pound the truck cab like 1,000 hammers. The bayou stretched out on both sides, black and endless under the storm. Water pooled on the road, inches deep and swirling with debris. I checked my phone. No signal, of course. Out here, you're completely alone. I leaned back, rubbed my eyes, and tried to wait out the storm. 10 minutes, maybe 20. That's when I saw the lights. At first I thought it was a trick of the rain, reflections or a distant vehicle. But no, they were out in the swamp, maybe a quarter mile away, moving through the cypress trees and tangled vines. Flickers, low to the ground, not steady like beams, but scattered like fireflies. Dozens of them, moving slowly toward the road. I squinted through the glass, wiping condensation with my sleeve. Not headlights, too dim, too spread out. The water was rising. I could hear it lapping against the tires like a tide creeping up a beach. The shoulder wasn't as high as I'd thought. I shifted in my seat, a chill running up my neck. Those lights weren't fading. They were getting closer, weaving through the undergrowth. I turned the key, headlights back on, cutting through the downpour. The beam swept the swamp, showing wet tree trunks and hanging moss. Nothing, just rain and shadows. But the lights continued, closer now, maybe 100 yards away. I counted them, 20, 30 pinpricks glowing against the darkness. My mouth went dry. What could they be? Not poachers, not alligators. I laughed nervously, but the sound died quickly. The truck rocked slightly as water pushed against the underside. I glanced down, 6 inches on the road now, murky and foaming. They emerged from the trees then, spreading onto the roadside. Not lights, eyes. Hundreds of them, reflecting yellow and green, unblinking in the rain. Low-bodied creatures slithering through the flood. Snakes. Not just a few, hordes of them. Cottonmouths and water moccasins pouring from the swamp, drawn by something. My heart pounded hard. The road around the truck came alive with them, coils twisting over the asphalt, sliding past the tires, some thick as my arm, others thin and whip-like, all moving with the same slow purpose. Water carried them closer, pushing them until they climbed the running boards, probing under the truck. I didn't scream, didn't make a sound. I sat frozen as the first snake slithered up the hood, leaving a trail of water. Its eyes locked with mine for a moment. Then another came and another, until the windshield was covered in a moving pattern of scales and stairs. By dawn, I reached dry pavement near the interstate, soaked through, hands still shaking. The weather report called it a freak storm, nothing more. But I know better. Out in the bayou, things don't always stay hidden, and sometimes when the water rises, it brings company you can't outrun. I've checked the truck twice since, under the seats, in the vents, but every shadow makes me look twice. The road's quiet now, but on still nights, I swear I hear that water lapping against the tires. I gripped the steering wheel tighter as the sun dipped behind the jagged Appalachian ridges, turning the highway into a fading ribbon of light. My delivery run from Knoxville to Asheville was ahead of schedule. No traffic, no breakdowns, just smooth asphalt under my old Ford pickup's tires. The dashboard clock read 4:17 in the afternoon, and I figured I'd save an hour by taking the back route through Black Hollow Pass. The tunnel had been sealed for decades after a cave-in in the 70s, but locals at the last truck stop said it reopened last month, quicker than winding around the mountain. I believed them. What could go wrong? The entrance appeared suddenly, a dark mouth cut into the rock face, framed by rusted chain-link fencing. A crooked sign hung. Black Hollow Tunnel. Use at own risk. No lights, no workers, just darkness swallowing the road ahead. I eased off the gas as the truck crossed the threshold. The air changed immediately, cooler and heavier, like stepping into an old root cellar. My headlights cut through the gloom, revealing damp walls with quartz veins glinting like teeth in the stone. About a mile in, the lights flickered. First a small stutter, then a full dimming where the beams vanished and flared back. I muttered under my breath, tapping the dashboard. The engine hummed steadily, but the bulbs were old. I slowed to 20 miles per hour, crawling forward as the tunnel's curve blocked my view. Then the headlights died completely. No warning, just absolute darkness pressing in from all sides. I braked harder than intended, tires squealing softly on the damp concrete. The truck stopped, engine idling in the void. I flipped the light switch back and forth. Nothing. Only the dashboard glowed faintly. I'd driven through tunnels before, but this one felt different, tighter, like the walls were closing in. I reached for the radio, hoping to break the silence. It crackled to life with something unexpected, not a music station, but a low humming. Multiple voices emerged, rough and layered, singing an old ballad. The words sounded archaic, mournful. In the hollow's breast, where the light don't rest. The tune was strange, notes bending unnaturally, echoing off the tunnel walls. My fingers trembled as I tried turning down the volume, but the song continued, seeming to come from inside the truck itself. The air thickened, and my ears popped with a sudden pressure drop. It felt like the tunnel was breathing, something massive moving slowly toward me. I tried to stay calm. Just road fatigue playing tricks, I told myself, but my palms were sweating, and I could feel the mountain's weight pressing down. The song grew louder, voices multiplying, becoming something pleading and hungry. Memories of my father's mining stories surfaced. Folks went in and didn't come out right, he'd always say. I'd dismissed those tales as campfire nonsense, but now they felt uncomfortably real. I shifted into gear, inching forward. The truck lurched, its engine growl the only familiar sound. No headlights meant feeling my way, trusting the road's faint outline. The radio song warped with each movement, echoing strangely. Something was coming. Something old and embedded in the mountain's core. I gripped my small flashlight, its beam cutting a weak path through darkness. Shadows leaped with strange intention. The pressure built, my ears throbbing. Whatever was ahead was close, just beyond the tunnel's curve. Then I saw it. A shape, not rock, not machinery. Something fluid and alive, moving with deliberate slowness. The song reached a peak, voices surrounding me like a living thing. I floored the accelerator. The truck surged, tires slipping, momentum carrying me forward. Something cold brushed past, barely touching the vehicle. Daylight appeared. I burst from the tunnel, mountain receding in my rearview mirror. The tunnel mouth looked like a dark scar in the rock. I pulled over, hands shaking, replaying everything. Dad was right. The hollow sings. And somehow I knew it had called my name. I won't take that shortcut again. But sometimes, late at night, I hear an echo of gravel voices waiting for the next traveler.